welcome to another episode of Colubrid and Colubroid Radio. As always, Clint's with me. How you doing, man?
I'm good, buddy. I'm good. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing well. Tired, but it's a good time, not a bad tired. March is, I think the word for March is relentless for me. I am either at school or I am somewhere in the southeastern part of the country chasing something. But, you know, that's a good way to be. So, but for our listeners, Clint and I refused to give up because getting this one recorded was a bit of an uphill struggle, but we are desperate to stick to our every 2 weeks. So that's what's basically going on with this one here, because I am in between trips. So, Mr. Bartley, how are you doing?
Oh, man, I'm with you, buddy. I am so tired. It's 3 weekends in a row, 3 shows. Mm-hmm. I've had school presentations and birthday parties mixed in there, rushing around trying to get everything, situated over here as well. I had a school call today and they wanted to schedule a presentation for the week. Like I get back from Tinley Sunday night, put animals away Monday morning, and then I leave that very next weekend for another show out of town. And I just told the staff, I go, no, I want to, but that week it's just not going to happen. Especially asking me today with the way I feel as tired as I am. So, but yeah, man, it's been brutal. It's nothing's been bad. It's not a bad thing. It's just been a constant go. Yep. No relaxation or relief. So just tiring.
Yep. Yeah, in the end, it's worth it, though. That's what at least we tell ourselves. So, anyway, as far as updates, I had to actually break away from school today. I very rarely do anything for me during the work week, but I'm leaving on a spring break trip going down to South Carolina for a day and then Florida to look for crayfish and snakes and everything. And I haven't gotten my damn animals out of brumation yet because I was gone last week doing graduate student stuff in South Carolina and Florida. There's a recurring theme. And so I was like looking at my weekly schedule and I thought the only way I can do this is to do it during like the work day. So I did a lot of Zoom meetings with my camera off, walking around, plugging in thermostats and checking in on everybody. But I'm happy to say that the collection is up and running. I even offered some of those. We've had weird weather the past couple weeks. I mean, we're recording the day after that, the infamous, what is today? Wednesday, Tuesday, when like the vast majority of the country east of the Rocky Mountains had like the highest record temperature in February ever. And I could tell that some of those animals, when I was looking at them, I was basically like, you've been awake for like a week. So they ate too. Like, they were cruising tubs, and I thought, oh, maybe I'm not waking you up. Maybe I'm just moving you from this tub to a bigger tub. And sure enough, they were slamming their mice and stuff. But nice. Collection is awake now until Thanksgiving. So that's basically where I'm at. I haven't paired anybody yet. I haven't gotten to that. Well, that's not true. I keep all my red-sided garter snakes together, and I just turn their heat back on, and the male, I'm down to one male. I usually have 2, but I lost the male last year. That is the luckiest male red-sided garter snake in all the land because he has 5 giant females, and I don't think he has stopped courting since he woke up on Sunday. So, anyway, but no, that's it for me. What's up with you?
So I did have my first clutch already.
Wow.
I don't think they didn't look good though. So maybe one. It's the Persinum, the green bush rat snakes.
Mm-hmm.
And I was pretty sure they weren't going to be good when she was going into a prelay shed and started laying while she's in her prelay shed.
Oh,
and that's normally a sign that, she's spitting out some slugs. So, they always go early. It's usually first week of March. So we're just, about a week early. Well, if she would have waited till after she shed, it would have been first week of March.
Perfect.
So, but I've got, 2 trios of those. And so that's just the first, one to go. We'll see how the rest do. Everything's out of brumation. I'm trying something different this year. with record keeping. I'm continuing to try to streamline how we do things, especially when you've got multiple people with their hands on it.
Oh, I know all about that.
Yeah. And this is something that may work out for you too. Basically, you know, I've always been an index card guy, and for all the babies and all the holdbacks, we'll continue to do that. But this year, all of the breeding rooms, we went through and I got my complete list broke down by rack. So like, you know, if it's an ARS, it's a 30 tub rack. And I've got everything listed. I have a sheet now where it's got Monday. It's going to be Monday through Friday because my collection guys don't work on the weekends. And instead of writing on each individual card, they have a sheet for each rack, and they can just write F for frozen if it took a frozen thawed, L for live, because we just keep track of that so we know if something's finicky or picky, S for shed, X for refused, you know, all this. And so it speeds things up for them because all they're doing is just boom, 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 boom down the, you know, this list. But then for me, when it comes to breeding and, you know, knowing when something needs to be paired, instead of me having to go through and look at every index card, I look at this sheet and, okay, there's an S, there's a shed. It's time for this one, you know, boom. And so we're going to see, as long as we can stay up on it, I think it's going to be a good thing for us. And I just built those sheets yesterday. Got everything loaded in today, so I'll print them out for them tomorrow, and we'll begin utilizing them. So every room will have one of those little clipboard hanger things, you know what I mean, like a doctor's office, and which is funny because that's exactly what those rooms used to be, were doctors' exam lanes.
Oh, really?
Before we bought the building, yeah.
That's very funny.
So it'll be like that. Another thing, just a quick mention that it's up in the air, but I think I may move to this year and give it a shot, is whole room heat. I've always been a much bigger fan of gradient, but I'm looking at with the variance that I'm having in some of these racks, as far as because when you're heating that many racks in one room, it's more than just the 2 to 3 degree variance from top to bottom, because there's so much heat happening in there. So I'm thinking, well, if that's kind of how it's happening, why don't I just heat the room and install some fans so it's circulating and keeping a little more balance? So, or I may just put a fan and see if that balances it. We'll see.
Yeah, we do. Here at the university, our hatchling room, we were trying to do it's the exact issue you were talking about. We had thermostats, and we have a bunch of racks in there because almost all of our snakes start in racks. And there was so much of a discrepancy when we were throwing govies in tubs. Like, there was discrepancy between the freaking middle tub and the left tub and the right tub in a row. Like, you know, and last year I kind of had a tipping point because we didn't do the best we made a lot of baby snakes last year, but we lost a lot of eggs. And then we had a lot of babies that didn't thrive. And my big thing this year is we are not. But I went to whole heat in the nursery, and it's kind of neat because you still get a gradient, but the gradient is floor to ceiling. So like near the top, it's hot, and then near the bottom is low, and then we just run a heater like you would in an office, nothing fancy.
Yeah.
But it worked. We were having problems getting our hognose snakes started. We had about 50 of them. And as soon as I went to the whole room being heated up, and, you know, that problem literally in days was rectified, and everybody was eating and doing what they need to do. And ever since we've done it, it's worked out great. So, yeah.
So I think we're going to try.
I can vouch for that.
You know, one thing that's prevented me for a long time is, that means I'm walking into 80-degree rooms.
Yeah. And you're a big guy like me. Exactly. And that sucks. I don't want to flash sweat.
Right.
But I do in the January.
Then I've got to walk back out to the public. You know what I mean?
No, I got to walk out to students. And I wear hoodies a lot and forget about that room. And it's funny you brought that up. I think it was 2 weeks ago. I was like walking across campus. It was like 20 degrees outside. Got into the building. It was like room temperature. And then I walked in that damn nursery and then just immediately started sweating. Then I had to run back across campus in 20 degrees. It was just, nuts. But
yep.
Anyway.
I feel you.
Cool.
Oh, well, let's jump into our market and science updates. I think both of us have something really cool to share today.
Yeah,
so
sure.
I'm looking forward to it. Start with yours, man, because I already know what yours is, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
So,
well, what's funny is the past couple episodes, I was struggling. I wasn't struggling. That's too strong a word. But I was, kind of doing what am I going to talk about that's fun and interesting and timely? And I kind of had to stretch. And then in the past week, there's been 4 big science things hit with snakes. So I banked them all, and unless something happens, I know what I'm talking about for the next 4 episodes. But we're going to talk about we're jumping out of the world of Colubrid, and we're going to jump into the wonderful genus Eunyctes, which are the anacondas, because we've decided that it doesn't necessarily have to be Colubrid oriented, snake oriented for the science update. And if you listened to the last episode, you know that I like boas, and anacondas are my favorite boas. So there you go. But basically, a multi-author, massive paper came out, massive being lots of authors, and it was a phylogeographic taxonomic analysis of the genus Eunyctes again, so a revision, if you want to call it that. And basically, for lack of a better word, they did your classic, what we call barcoding gene. They looked at some nuclear genes. They looked at some mitochondrial genes for the nerds out there, cytochrome oxidase 1 being the one. And then they just, they relied on phylogenetic tree to form clades. And then they went and tested whether those clades were something called an evolutionary significant unit or, higher than that species level. And make a long story short, they did that, and they actually ended up describing a new species of green anaconda. The Latin name is Eunyctes echeima, and this is a species that is basically endemic to a single river system that goes from Venezuela down into Amazonia. And it's getting a lot of press because it is the largest undescribed species in the past umpteen years. I don't know the exact years, but you're literally talking about one of the world's largest snakes, and you split one from another. And it's been kind of fun. I've enjoyed watching the internet's response. Normally, when we split something away from something else, this is when the bashing of splitters comes out and everybody gets mad. And then there's also people that are like, but wait, the science. And I read the paper a couple times. I don't really have much of an issue with the paper. You knew that it's splitting for the sake of splitting, but they did their due diligence, and that's what's cool is they didn't just rely on a phylogenetic tree. They then went and looked at scales. They have a zoogeographic argument. They looked at the pattern and compared it to Eunyctes murinus, which is now the dominant type green anaconda, and all as well. So that's one thing. But what's not getting that much discussion, which I want to talk a little bit about, is that last year, a paper very similar to this one came out. And what that paper did is it took yellow anacondas and it split up the yellow anacondas. So Eunyctes notaeus, it split them into, I think it was 2 species, if I'm not mistaken. Could have been 3, but I think it was 2. And in this paper, these scientists did an analysis. They threw in yellow anaconda DNA and their model of evolution, and what they did, basically, they didn't see enough evidence to honor the new species of yellow anaconda, so they actually sunk the new species of anaconda back into notaeus. So if you're an anaconda nerd,
isn't
you
the
need to read
author the guy that split the yellow? Isn't he one of them that just split the green anaconda too, or one of them?
Could be. I mean, there's so many authors on this thing, it wouldn't surprise me. There's 2 kind of noteworthy herpetologists that are on this paper. One of them is Brian G. Fry, who's well known because he's the Venom doc. He has a biography that y'all can get. He was on, I felt like every time you saw a white male scientist milking a damn snake, it was Fry doing it from 2005 to 2015. So it's really interesting that he did venom work and now is working with anacondas, which don't have any venom. They don't have any way of making venom. And then the other one is Jesus Rivas, who's worked with anacondas literally since the 90s. He has an awesome book. It's literally called Anaconda. I highly recommend that book. It's a fun one. But he's done a tremendous amount of field work with these animals. He did his PhD at the University of Tennessee with these animals. And so it's not surprising that he took it one step further and then jumped into taxonomy. But it's a fun paper. Don't be surprised if somebody isn't going to put out another paper in the next year just because anacondas are really sexy snakes and they grab the public's attention and they're giants. And when you have that kind of situation, it's going to get a lot of clicks. And whether scientists want to admit it or not, it's good when your research gets attention because that's how you get science like this funded. Because whether we want to admit it or not, while anacondas are great, I guarantee you they had to find some pretty unique funding streams to get this work done. So, but that's that. So we have a new species of anaconda. Pretty cool.
So, and correct me if I'm wrong, because, I read a few articles on this myself because I found it pretty interesting. And I think what really got me was how different they are genetically.
Yeah.
If I'm right, it was like 5%. Is that right?
Yep.
So 5% different. And we're only 0.8 or so, or 2 or whatever.
2.9% different than a chimp.
And these snakes are 5% different.
Yeah.
Yet you can't look at them and tell, you know.
So what that is it's funny you bring that up. I'm glad you brought that up because there are some molecular scientists that put value on that 5%. And there are other molecular scientists who, I don't want to say they don't put value on that, but they care more about when you make that tree that's in the paper. Like, does everybody clade together and form a group? We call that a monophyletic group. Or do they kind of clade all over the place? And with this paper, you have the percent difference and they formed a nice tight group. And the real thing that's segregating them is historical zoogeography. So what was going on in the last ice age down in Amazonia basically isolated these animals from other populations. And it creates something we call a cryptic species. This isn't quite a cryptic species. Cryptic species are species that are different genetically, but you can't see a difference. There are differences. They're subtle, but there are differences. But I have a tendency to be on team split anyway. I have to keep tabs on this stuff with my crayfish research. I read a lot of papers trying to figure out, is lumping better? Is splitting better? And I am fairly certain in the end, as we learn more and more and more, there is much more evidence for most animals leaning more towards we've been too conservative than we probably should have been with their taxonomy. So, but at the same time, I want to be able to look at something and tell it apart from something else. That kind of splitting drives me crazy.
Absolutely. So
there you go.
I guess one other thing I thought was really neat too that I read on that was there's been no evidence of interbreeding genetics either. And that's with them saying that they have even found them on opposite riverbanks. Yeah. So, I mean, the species are, there's places they're right there, but they're not integrating. They're that different. That's amazing.
Well, there's also, when you learn about species, you learn there's all these species recognition modalities. And we're, as mammals, we rely heavily on our sense of vision to look at something and tell it's different. And we aren't really chemoreceptive in our mate selection. Like, you don't look at someone and be like, you're kind of hot, and then shove your nose up in their armpit and smell them. Like, and if you do that, you're probably going to jail. So don't do that. But lots of animals, though, looks don't really matter. It's that chemical signature. And we all know that snakes have an incredible sense of smell. And even calling it a sense of smell is probably a little disingenuous. It's just chemoreception is a major part of their deal. So to them, the fact that the anacondas don't look identical, that may not matter to them at all with species recognition, but they may be picking up a chemical cue that tells them very clearly you're a different species than me.
So neat.
And I don't think we take that into consideration as often as we should when when scientists split out a new species and we're all like, oh, damn it, what the hell? But I say that, and then when they split the rhino rats 2 years ago, I read that paper and was like, oh, hell no. Like that. So, I'm a hypocrite too. But anyway.
Love
okay.
it,
So that's my science update.
That's good stuff.
How's the market these days?
All right. So it's gone pretty much in the direction that we thought. So let's go with some numbers here. Mm-hmm. So overall, the snakes on morph market, so just those listed, just snakes, no other animals. There were a little over 1,700 less. So we saw a 3% drop in the number of total snake listings, and that's in a 2-week period. Mm-hmm. So that's significant. When you're going from over 57,000 to 55 and a half in 2 weeks, that's a significant drop. So that is really showing what time of year that we're in right now. Whenever I've been talking about taxes and that you're going to have more and more purchases taking place, it is happening. To break that down a little bit, ball pythons had a 1306 drop, so 3%. Pythons, just so all other pythons, they dropped 3.5. Boas dropped 2.4, colubrids 3.3. So everything was pretty, in line with one another as far as what was moving. And that then again goes back to what we've talked about before, where, especially the ball python market, when individuals are saying it's slow, it's dead, it's dying. No, every one of those markets were, within a point of one another, as far as how much has been sold. So that's pretty good news. As far as colubrids, we had, we've got 6,131 colubrids listed. Corn snakes make up 27.3% of that, and they dropped 3% from 2 weeks ago. Hognose make up 32.4% of that, and they dropped 4.8. 104 hognose were sold off of morph. Well, that had been listed on Morph Market are now no longer there compared to 2 weeks ago. And all other colubrids down 2%. So the all other category was about the slowest moving of all the snake categories in the past 2 weeks. But then again, it's usually one of the smaller ones too. It's currently now making up 37.1% of all colubrids. And the overall pieces, and I know I'm moving fast, guys. Ball pythons still make up 75.3% of the overall snake market on Morph Market. Other pythons make up 4.2, boas make up 9.5, and colubrids are holding at 11%. They were 11.1 2 weeks ago, 11 this week. So pretty much staying the same there. 206 colubrids were sold from 2 weeks ago to today. So what I'm seeing personally, as everyone knows, and I mentioned, I've been at shows 3 weeks in a row. Was at the Evansville, Indiana show, Lexington, Kentucky show, Indianapolis, Indiana, and all three of those shows were all great. I saw a variety of things moving. I had, there's been a lot of colubrids but there've been frogs, there've been gargoyle geckos. The last two shows, I didn't even take ball pythons. And I had a friend ask me at the most recent one why I didn't. And, I said, I didn't feel that they were really worth the real estate right then. And what I meant by that was, again, not that issue with ball pythons, but at the shows right now, obviously they're still very ball python heavy. And so I just looked at it as far as the table space I had, there were other things that I felt would be smarter to put on the table, rather than competing with the other ball python breeders. And I didn't have a lot of ball pythons, but it's a good time to get a deal on them. I can tell you that. I did. I picked up some for the shop, and I've got them in quarantine right now. So, but all in, things are still moving. We've got Tinley coming up in a couple weeks. That usually starts to the week of, in the week before Tinley, online sales tend to slow down a little bit. And that's both in March and in October. I'll also see it on Colubrids like right before Daytona. Those are really the only three shows that I see that really affect the market in that way. And I think it's because there's a large number of people who are wanting to wait and see what I see at the show, right?
Yep.
But then shortly afterwards, it kicks right back in. So don't be discouraged if you feel a little dip that week before. That is common. The other update. You don't even know about this yet, Zach. I haven't got to talk to you about it. Okay. Now, this is extremely preliminary, okay? Extremely. So as I say this, guys, don't come at me. Don't ask for timelines yet. I am hoping by the time this gets released, I will have a form created and I'll have a link put on our Facebook page as well as on the Metazotics website. But I have recently talked with a show promoter and pitched the idea of Colubrid Fest. You know, we're all about putting our money where our mouth is, right?
Yeah, we jump off cliffs, man.
So
you just jumped off the cliff and grabbed my ankle, and I didn't know.
So what I did was I simply said, you know, here's what we're doing. Here's what is being asked. Here's the idea. And I said, so now at this point, is it something you're interested in? Because I'm not foolish enough, Zach. I don't think you are either to think that it's something that we have, you know, in our wheelhouse to put together.
No,
it's, you know, you want to go to somebody that knows what they're doing. Right. And I said, so let me ask you, if we were, you know, looking at making this a reality, what are the next steps? What's the first thing that we need to do? And the individual said, one, you want to start narrowing down a location. And when we discussed that, you know, I said, we were kind of talking about it should probably be somewhat centralized. Mm-hmm. I said it needs to be near a hub, meaning near an airport hub. Mm-hmm. So it's easy for people to fly into, that kind of thing. But we also then have to research what are the state laws, you know, on herps in that area, you know, and city ordinances, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of that still has to take place. The other thing is how many vendors would come if it's Colubrid only kind of thing. So the next step on our end is going to be, I'll put a form together that when you click on the link, some of the questions are probably going to be maybe a series of like cities on what, where you would be willing to go vend, right? Because like normally if someone says, you know, will you come do this show? I don't travel further than 3 hours, but I travel 5 for Tinley.
Yeah.
You know, but that's kind of about my I don't go do the California shows, you know, type of thing. Mm-hmm. So I think that would be the next thing we need to do is figure out, okay, what city seems to be the one that everyone is like, yeah, that would be the one for us to go vend at, as well as getting an idea on how many vendors would be interested in doing this to make sure that we could, you know, make it what we want to make it. So I guess I just wanted everyone to know that, you know, we heard you loud and clear, because I think that was a comment we saw several times on the Facebook page after our last episode was Colubrid Fest, and let me know. So yes, beginning the small steps on trying to figure out what it's going to take to make that a reality.
Yeah. Well, I'm right there with you, bud, but I'm the nerd that flips rocks.
You'll be the one lining up talks then.
Yeah, I can do talks, man. I can do that with my hands tied behind my back. And speaking of that, IHS, we haven't talked about IHS, but Roy and I were online together. I'm not gonna give the list of speakers yet. It's kind of like what you were just doing. But we have our master list. We're just waiting for the IHS board to okay it, and then we're going to be inviting people. But did not forget about IHS. So everybody listening that was, you know, heard talks, that's what we're going to be doing this year at least. So Knoxville, June, I'm done.
Love it. Love it. Well, are we ready to bring our guest up and get to chatting corns? All right.
Yes, we are. However, I cannot unmute him. Are you kidding me? Okay. Go ahead and introduce him, and he may be able to speak afterwards.
Okay. So our guest today is Eric Westmorland from ECW Reptiles. Eric is known for his vast collection of corn snakes and some really, really nice mutations that he cranks out with him, amongst several other species. Eric's somebody I get to chat with at Tinley every year, and we message back and forth. And he's actually someone I've turned to on more than one occasion whenever I've got a corn morph that I can't identify when something's hatched out. And as is typically the case with corns that are always having hets hidden in there. But Eric's helped me out more than once. And so we looked forward to getting him on the show so that we get to chat about some corn snake mutations. So now I'm just seeing Zach staring at his computer screen like he's lost his puppy.
I've lost the puppy because we've lost Eric, who is the puppy. Eric, if you can hear me, can you unmute on your end?
Look.
Can you hear me?
There he is.
Yes.
All right.
We meant to do that. We wanted to build suspense.
Yep.
That's what we're doing. Hey, bud, how you
Ta-da!
doing, man? Yeah.
I'm doing good.
Yes. All right. My blood pressure is a little high, but we're going to let it drop here.
Well, Eric, now that we can hear you, my man.
Yes.
Let's take it from the beginning. This is the question I always like because I'm always interested to hear. So, buddy, let's hear how did you get into reptiles?
Nothing out of the ordinary. Dinosaurs to garter snakes.
Yes.
Gotcha.
I mean, just the classic story. Yeah. Had tons of dinosaur books, loved dinosaurs, and then it's like, hey, there's no dinosaurs around here. Next best thing, guys, garter snakes, toads, leopard frogs, bullfrogs. And that started it all.
Love it. Were you the only one in your family interested in reptiles, or was there someone else that kind of guided you?
Nope, I am the only one with that gene.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I'm ashamed to say I watched my grandma hack up snakes quite a bit when I was a kid.
Yeah, I think we've all been there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only person I was not able, with all of my conservation education that I did in my life early on, the only one I could not convince was my grandmother. I thought I'd finally convinced her not to kill the snakes, and she called and asked me to get this milk snake out of her backyard. I was like, oh my gosh, I did it. And when I got down, what she meant was get the 12 pieces of the milk snake out of my backyard.
Oh, yeah.
So no, I'm right there with you, man. I know what you mean.
What was the first reptile you kept?
Wow. Let's see. I didn't start keeping until 92 or 93 when I got out of the military. And tell you the truth, I think it was a Mediterranean wall gecko. It was really the first thing I had. Just out of the.
Because I didn't expect that answer, Eric.
What? Yeah. Well, hold on. No, we got to back that up. Hold on. We have to back that up. I did have tiger salamander when I was a kid.
Nice.
And then I can't believe I forgot about this, but back in the day, this is probably 75 or 6. When they could sell alligators at pet stores. My dad got me a little alligator one time. So actually, my first animal was an alligator.
Go big or go home.
Yeah.
Of course, it didn't live very long, but not until after I got out of the military did I start getting into keeping a lot, kind of realizing, hey, this is cool.
I actually have it's not off topic, but it is off topic because I know that you were in the military, but what like how long were you in the military and what did you do when you were in the military, and were herps, like, did you ever get an opportunity with the military to do anything herp related, or were you basically, nose to the grind stuff?
Oh yeah. I was a combat engineer stationed down in Fort Polk, Louisiana. So I was the snake guy when we went out to the field.
Nice.
That is a cool job.
And whenever, I mean, because on the military base, everything was protected. Them guys couldn't kill anything. You know, we had everything down there. Alligators, copperheads, cottonmouths, everything.
Oh, cool.
Being needs to get out.
So whenever they found something, we'll find Eric. He knows what it'll be. In fact, I got a story about that. I happened to be on KP, and I was back in the kitchen tent working, and I seen a group of guys out a ways with what looked like they were messing with a snake of some sort. Everyone's gathered around, a tree stump, all huddled down looking. So I got done what I was doing, and I walked over there, and I forget what that guy's name is, but his name forever after that became Fang, because I looked in his hand here. He picked up a pygmy rattlesnake.
Oh my
God! I got over there, and I'm.
Uh-oh. If you can hear us, Eric, we can't hear you. I think we lost you. I don't know.
Can you hear me?
There you are.
Oh, you're back. Okay. What happened with the pygmy?
Okay, phone just went off.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I went over there, and he's all being goofy and stuff with it, in his hand. He had it for like 15, 20 minutes in his hand. The whole time I'm like, dude, you need to put that snake down. It was like a neonate. It didn't even hardly have a button on it or anything, so them guys didn't even think anything of it. And it lasted for like 15 minutes. And then when he went to put that snake down, as soon as that snake hit the ground, it curled up, got him like one little fang there in that little bitty space on the side of your fingernail. Got him in the finger. And like, it wasn't even 5 minutes, and his hand was like looking like a football. So from that point forward, his name was Fang.
Good golly.
Gosh.
So we know that you started with an alligator and then you went to a gecko, which just seems strange to say out loud. And at some point the snakes come into play, but both Clint and I know you, and I know that you're definitely a colubrid centric guy. And we're going to be talking about corns, but you have things besides corns. So just for the audience, what are some of the other species that you work with before we dive deep into the corns?
I was prepared for this question because I had to write this down.
Nice.
I made a quick walk around. I've got 25 different species I work with.
Whoa.
Corn snakes being the majority, but I've got Everglades rats, Gulf hammock rats, Baird's rats, Japanese, Russian, Korean rats, Santa Cruz gophers, Cape gophers, San Diego gophers, North Mexican pine, Cal kings, Arizona mountain kings, Nablockeye, gray band kings, Andine milks, African house snakes. I got coxeye, Laticinctus, pulchers, and I got two locale specific mandarins. I got the Hunans and then the Exanthics, and then I got Tarahumara mountain boas and diamond pythons, and then I got a handful of those ball pythons.
Nice.
And one one chewy gecko.
Ah, cool. You always have to have the obligatory lizard. That seems like it's just always kind of there. Interesting. So of that, we know that corns are like the bread and butter, but is there one or two on that list that stand above the rest? Or do you just love them all?
So, well, believe it or not, my favorite one isn't even technically a colubrid, but I treat it like a colubrid, and that's those diamond pythons.
I was going to say that. Yeah, you chose the colubrid of Marilia. So
yes,
yeah.
And then those, and then I absolutely love those Russian rat snakes.
Very
love
cool.
them. And then my Japanese rat snakes after that, probably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was actually getting my Japanese rats up out of brumation and today, and they I pulled them out of the tub. They're the nicest snakes on earth until you wake them up from cremation. And the female like 5 times. Like my right hand is swollen from her. So I was not prepared for that. But no, Japanese rat snakes will forever be my favorite rat snake. I love those things to death. So good choice.
I've got 2 clutches of those already hatched.
Oh my goodness.
Nice.
Mine somehow decided to cycle themselves and breed generally in the late fall, early winter, and then usually the beginning of January to the beginning of February, I get eggs hatching.
Interesting.
And this year,
Nice.
yeah, it's weird.
Kind of seems like similar to what the Persinum do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, kind of that,
Yeah.
fall breeding and early spring, roughly.
Mine are COHAB too. So
Yeah, that's what I do with mine.
yeah,
So you have the one pair of pythons, and we'll forgive you for that. But obviously you're a Colubrid guy because the pythons you chose are the ones that you keep them like a Colubrid. But why Colubrids? We ask everyone this question.
Yeah.
You are definitely one of the main Colubrid guys in the country right now. But what about these snakes in particular makes them the snakes you want to work with?
just the absolutely variety of them. I mean, what do you want to work with? You want to work with locale specific animals? You can do that. You want to work with morphed animals? You can do that. If you want to go down the route and hybrid, crossbreed that stuff, you can do that.
Yeah.
But literally just the variety. And then
So
it's
much
just,
out there.
and then I think, it's everything. I mean, of course, it all started with what I was finding around the house when I was a kid. And even now I go out field herp a little bit. So, I mean, all that plays into it too. I mean, that's how I got into a lot of the different pits. I always wanted to work with bull snakes, and it's like I can't here in this state or Iowa. So, like, I got San Diego gophers,
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Very cool.
and yeah.
So what moved you to have corn so deep? It's obviously you like a lot of the colubrids, and I'm sitting here as you're listing or naming your list. I'm like, yep, I work with those. Yep, I work with those. So, I mean, we like a lot of the same things. And so I'm just curious, what has taken you to make corns your deep one, the one that you have so many of?
Right. With the corns, I think it is that kind of the artistic side, if that makes sense.
No, that's fair. And I think I know what you mean by that.
Yeah, it's just, it's just part of it. It's something I can dabble with and be the mad scientist and create these new colors and stuff like that, and still enjoy the animal itself too, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's so often that we overlook corns. So many of us do to a degree, because I can tell you there were times that, there were times I had corns and then I'd gotten rid of all my corns, and then I get a couple and you forget how pretty they really end up becoming.
Oh yeah.
It's even when I'm telling people all the time about how much rat snakes change, most rat snakes, whenever they're from a baby to an adult, corns are probably the biggest example of that, when it comes to mutations and whatnot, because gosh, I mean, to your point, Eric, there's so many colors, so many patterns, and they are stunning as adults. They really, really are. So, I agree with you, man. I agree with you there.
And like everything else, they kind of took a back seat to the ball python craze when that started. And I see a lot of those folks now getting back into corns and kind of doing the same thing. Yeah.
Well, and one of the reasons that I pull out corns and hognose both on the market, analysis piece, it's because there's so many of them are available, but it's because there's so many different kinds that, so many different mutations available.
Right.
That, there's so many options. So, and like I said, I kind of joke and say, I've had people ask, do you have any normal corn snakes? And I go, listen, I don't know if normal corn snakes really exist in the hobby anymore. I have some that look normal, but if you breed them, something's going to pop out. They've all got het something, probably multiple. So, do you have a favorite? Do you have a favorite morph?
I have a lot of sun-kissed. I don't know. I can't say that is my favorite, but I have a hell of a lot of sun-kissed stuff, and that seems to be a mainstay in there. So I guess sun-kissed.
All right, we'll go with sun-kissed.
Yeah, that works. I am starting to work with a lot of that Castani stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of an untapped morph to work with.
Gotcha. All right. Well, we're going to talk about morphs in just a moment, but before we move there, obviously corn snake care has been gone over. We had an episode here where Zach and Matt interviewed Kathy Love. There's books. There's tons of information about corn snake care out there. So I don't really think we'll need to dive into that, but I do want to know if you do anything different. And what I mean is different than what would normally. Do you brumate? Do you not brumate? Do you know what I mean? Anything like that?
Right. Not really any different, I don't think. I know in a lot of the groups and stuff, people are always asking, various questions and stuff like that. And I'm like, as long as the animal's alive and it's thriving, you're going to be all right. I mean, that's another reason why I like corn so much too. They're just so hardy. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, you have to do something really, really bad to kill one of them. They're so just tolerant of everything you can do.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Here recently, I started brumating a lot of the groups together just to save on space and time when I go to clean.
Mm-hmm.
I've cohabbed corns for a long time. Usually a lot of the holdbacks and stuff, I'll hold those together. That's kind of out of the ordinary, I guess. And I've never had any issues.
I think that we're starting to. I think that was an issue in the past where if people did cohab, but then it got to where if you were cohabbing species, you're terrible because you shouldn't cohab. But I think it's starting to come back around to where people are realizing a lot of these it's perfectly fine. You take your precaution when feeding,
right?
But otherwise, it's okay. As long as they got the room and it's kept clean. So, and I think that's something, especially on this podcast in particular, because it gets brought up a lot. I mean, by some very expert keepers with various species that they're cohabbing. And the more I hear it, the more I think, isn't that going to give it like the most natural breeding cycle, out there? That they're going to do it when they want to do it, not when we put them together to do it. So,
right. I mean, that's you're absolutely right. That's what my Japanese rat snakes are together all the time. I separate the male from my females after they lay, so give her a break and then fatten them up. My Korean rats are the same way. The Russian rats are the same way. I don't have any corns right now that are cohab. Well, actually, I do, but I got stuff paired up. But I've got a couple of them in there that have been paired since November, and it's let them do the work.
Yeah. You've got me sitting here thinking now as you're rattling off species. I'm like, yeah, I got those. I should probably just go ahead and put them together. Yeah, I got those. Probably just put them together. Saves me all that. My problem is typically I've got at least 2 females to a male. Anybody who knows me, keep your jokes to yourself. But they, so I'm trying to cycle back and forth, between them. But I think anything that most species, if I've got a pair that the male's not going to anything else, I may try to do a lot more cohabbing, at least through the season, and see how that goes. So.
I was just answering someone's question today about cohabbing, and I'm like, it's probably better if you've kept snakes for a while and know what to look for and just know how they're acting. I've had some that I had to remove because one of them, I don't know, one of them wasn't eating, just wasn't acting right. And it was like, well, all right, I'm going to go ahead and move you out. It all goes back to know your animals, first off, watch them and whatnot. But, cohabbing is where I've learned that 2-year-old corn snakes that don't even weigh 180 grams will lay eggs. With no problems.
You're muted, Zach. Zach, I think you muted yourself when you were trying to unmute him. That or your mic's out, brother. Well, Zach's trying to say something, but while he figures out his technical difficulty over there, so let's talk about some morphs. Okay.
Sure.
All right. So I've got a series of questions I want to ask you here. What do you think is the most popular morph currently?
Stuff that I don't like. That might, and that's the way it goes. Believe it or not, the stuff I like is the dark, more cryptic looking animals, but that just doesn't fly with the rest of that micro scale seems to be making big waves.
I've seen those. Can you describe that to the listeners?
Oh, it's just what it says. I mean, it's like tiny scales. It almost feels like what?
I was going to say, is that a recessive mutation?
Yes, I believe it's a recessive mutation, and I believe it's allelic with scaleless. If you ever get a scaleless animals that you get them and they kind of come out more of a scale-ish, you get some scales on it. That's what those microscales look and feel like. They feel like little pebbles. The scales are so small. It's just not my cup of tea, but I know they're pretty popular.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Makes sense there. Do you have a favorite? Well, you said you have a lot of Sunkiss. I guess instead of favorite, what's some of the craziest combos out there right now?
Ooh. Well, for me, I got let's see. I think that animal's 5 gene. Strawberry, lavender, motley, diffused. I guess that's only 4.
All right. And what does something like that look like? And this is where the audience is saying, Clint, why don't you have us on video yet? Why we're getting there. I promise. And I'll tell you this. Here's what I'm going to go ahead and say it now on the episode. Eric, if you'll send me some pictures of some of your corns, I'll make sure they get posted on the Facebook page so people can see some of what we're talking about. Oh, yeah, we absolutely can do that. That one I just described, though, that strawberry, lavender, motley, diffused. I could have sworn there was something else in there, but it's kind of a light pinkish purple. And then the dots on the back from the motley are kind of an orangish yellow. Wow. And that's one of the things, too, that I will say when it comes to any species that's got a bunch of color mutations available, I don't think any can rival the colorations you can come up with corn snakes. Oh, yeah. They even ball pythons, which, we know there are tons of mutations of ball pythons. When it comes to flat out color schemes that are just incredible, I mean, it's the corn snake is the Picasso. I mean, it's nuts. So we're going to come back to some of the colors, but I guess, are there any flawed morphs out there? Are there anything that's like you can't breed together because it's an issue? Well, I don't know. We're going to find out. This is the first year I'm taking a Palmetto to a Palmetto, because all the way up till now I've been doing homozygous to het, and this year I'm going to try it and see what happens.
I used to think that way with scaleless stuff too, and it all worked out, scaleless to scaleless.
Mm-hmm. Now, Palmetto's known to have some bug eye issues, right?
Right.
And are those?
And I don't know what's that.
I was going to say, are those typically? I thought it was sex related, possibly.
I'm not that sure about it. I'm not sure if it's two related animals being, breeding. I don't know. We'll find stuff out.
Gotcha. How do you feel about the Palmetto morph?
Yeah, I like the straight Palmetto. We were just talking on, or there was another question someone asked, how many Palmetto combinations are out there, and it's just like, what you're going to have a white snake with slightly different colored scales on it.
Yes,
it's all going to be a white snake, and I mean. The original Palmettos are absolutely gorgeous all by themselves. I mean, they just are.
Yeah, I've had individuals ask me about Palmettos before too, and I've said that I think they're cool, they're neat, but it's nothing that I'm looking to put into a project because in my mind it's a dead end project because all you get you get the white snake and either the specks are going to be red. Or these few specks are going to be yellow, maybe orange. It's not really going to do anything. So,
then I keep my ear open for people putting pattern mutations into it. Like I seen one today. Someone said they had a, I don't know, something else along with motley in this Palmetto, and I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, how do you know unless you bred it and got motleys out of that snake? How are you going to know a Palmetto is motley or het motley or anything?
Right.
And then the same thing goes with like Tessera or even Stripe and any of that stuff.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
I can hear
back. Woo-hoo.
Okay. So I have some questions about Palmetto. Isn't there something deleterious with that gene? Isn't there? I thought that there was something where, like, not all palmettos actually produce palmettos when you breed them together, or that they're known for some googly eye, or I don't know. I mean, I'm not a morph guy, but I felt like there was something with palmetto that, because I was looking into a little bit of my backstory real quick. I reached a point where it was like, okay, I'm either going to dive deep with the kings or I'm going to dive deep with the corns. And I was leading down the corn path, because there's localities with corns, and I like localities, but I am on the teams that locality is kind of like a morph. I think it's a little disingenuous to not say you're really breeding for a phenotype that's for a location through line breeding, which is also what we do with morphs. But anyway, then West Virginia passed regs, and the regs stated you couldn't have corn snakes, and I like Florida king snakes, so that's what made me go down the king path. But I was at the fork in the road there. And when I was reading about palmettos, because I thought they looked cool, I remember reading about genes and they didn't work, and then being like, well, I'm not interested in this anymore because it may not even jive. But I'm ignorant to all of this. So can you maybe talk a little bit about that? Because I know palmettos at one point, they may still be, were like the almighty morph of corns.
Yeah. I mean, for the most part, they're still they're very popular. I remember when they had $10,000 price tags on them.
Yes.
A few years ago, and it was like, I sure as hell couldn't get any back then, that's for sure. But that's what we were just kind of talking about before you got back on there, Zach, is this year I'm going to take Palmetto to Palmetto. Up till now, I haven't, just because I was always afraid I'd get the bug-eyed stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I don't, with the bug-eyed stuff, I don't know if it's because they're too closely related being inbred or something else. I'm not sure.
Gotcha.
So we'll find out, because I got one going this year, Palmetto to Palmetto.
But no other morphs that you know of that have any kind of genetic issues?
Well, this past year, I picked up some You really don't hear about them much anymore, but I got some stargazers.
I remember
and
that
all that
years
is
ago. I heard about that.
Right. I mean, everyone's kind of bred that out. They came in with some, actually Kathy Love's first Okatee Sunkissed showed up in those. And it's just a neurological, it's funny because it's a neurological problem, but it's a recessive trait.
Oh.
So yeah, you get this, you get this, I mean, the animal is fine. It just acts goofy. It's, it's like that spider, like a spider ball. And then the more excited it gets, the worse it is. But other than that, I mean, the one I've got a homozygous stargazer, and then I got a het. And I'm just using it to test some of the animals in my collection. I really haven't. I mean, I've bred sister back to sister and siblings back to parents and stuff like that, and haven't got any. But still, it'd be nice to have them here. Test my stuff, and then if anybody wants to test their stuff, they can contact me, and we can do that too. But they just, they're just like a spider ball python. I mean, they can't really right themselves quickly or fastly. They're just kind of corkscrewing around. Then the more excited they get, the more that happens. Like feeding time, they get crazy. But they eat and everything's fine with them. But like Clint was saying, we haven't really seen that since probably the 90s.
I'll say, yeah, that's back when it was a big deal. It was back in the 90s. Wow.
But other than that, I guess I have, and some other folks have some kinking issues with the lavender gene. I've got 4 different lines of lavender, and all of them have produced some kinked animals.
So when you say 4 different lines, are you talking like, so they've come from 4 different, like, are you just meaning you've gotten them from 4 different breeders, or each of these lavender, like
4 different breeders
started? Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. I've got, I mean, they're different. I've got charcoal lavenders. I've got sun-kissed lavenders. I forget what the other one is too, but they're all, for the most part that I know of, unrelated. But the thing is, it's funny. It's always kind of an ongoing talk, but the Europeans don't have any of those issues over there with lavenders. With my lavenders, I can almost tell you I'm going to have kinked animals. Not all of them, but I don't have a number right off the hand, but I bet you last year, out of maybe 24, I bet you probably 4 or 5 of them were kinked last year. And I've had some where the whole doggone clutch comes out kinked. And it's just, I mean, it's that lavender gene. It's just like, I don't know what it is.
Speaking of kinking, and I'm only going to bring this up because it happens to be a corn snake, and I'm tossing out to see if either one of you know what would do this, or if any of our listeners had a Tessera candy cane corn and no issues whatsoever. And I've had like 5 or 6 of them, from this clutch. And it was one of our holdbacks. I want to say, reached probably 6 or 7 months old. And, everything eating fine, growing, it's got good size on it. And then over maybe a 6-week period, developed incredible kinking all through it.
Huh.
I mean, its entire body developed kinks, where we're not talking, it had some kinks that got worse. No, this was a fine animal that then has developed complete kinks all through it. I just don't know if anybody's experienced something like that. It's insane. I'll send you guys pictures because I'm like, what has happened here?
I mean, it has to be something along the lines of like, I don't know, cerebral palsy or something like that in humans. I mean, obviously these animals have to get kind of the same stuff. We just never know. I mean, that's like the question always, people are always asking why their little baby corns croak off. You know, they're doing well, and then they just drop off, and everyone's answer is, you know, failure to thrive. It's like, well, that's kind of a generic term. Something didn't develop in there, or something just didn't happen. Right. Defect or something. So, I mean, it makes me wonder. I wonder if that isn't like a disease or something like that it picked up. I did have a Cape gopher that did that. It had two kinks in it when I got it. I got it as an adult, and I was keeping an eye on it, trying to figure out whether I wasn't going to breed it or not. And then it ended up getting some more kinks on down the road. And I went ahead and actually gave it away to a nature center. So I was like, oh, I'm not going to breed that poor thing. But it kind of did that. It had some kinks when I got it, but then it developed some more.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that's the same, you know, along the same lines.
I said that I've never heard of that, and then I started thinking about it, and I had all the way back in 2004, I bought a Blue Beauty rat snake and the Tampa Reptile Show when I was in Florida, and it had two kinks because the guy was selling it at a super discounted price because it had two kinks, and then it grew like like one of those beauty snakes grow. And it went from 2 kinks to 4 kinks to 8 kinks to 16 kinks. And I actually put it down because it got to the point where it couldn't slither.
Yeah.
The kinking was like, I don't know how to explain this on radio, but like a kink would lead into a kink, which would lead into a kink, which would then make a square. If you kind of,
yeah,
you know what I mean? And it was like, it's not doing it. It was incapable of movement. So I humanely euthanized it.
Yeah. And we're going to have to do the same thing here. It's, I guess, because I've seen kinks develop in snakes, like what you're describing, you know, some here and some there. I've also seen it happen the other way, where it's usually like a ball python, and they hatch out with a small kink towards its tail somewhere. And as it gets bigger, that kink like works itself through to where it's no longer visible. You can't even find where it's at anymore.
They kind of grow out of the kink.
Correct.
Yeah.
But with this, I mean, we're literally talking about 6 weeks. It went from a perfectly fine non-kink snake to something that if it would have hatched out looking like this, you'd have put it down immediately. There's no, it's unlike anything I've ever seen. So, sorry for that tangent, but we're talking corns and kinks. I'm just like, well, find out if this is something anybody else has dealt with before. So let's ask this, Eric. Because there's so many morphs out there and you keep so many and have been doing corns for so long, do you know any of the like origin stories of any of these morphs, where they came from, where they popped up, anything like that?
Yeah, no, I know quite a few of them. I know Sarah Moore wrote a book a while back. It has a lot of those stories in there, but yeah. I mean, which ones do you want to talk about?
Hey, which pick some that you like.
Are the most interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, like that. I actually work with a lot of cinder animals too, and the cinder is kind of like it's another anery type. In fact, I think they call it. Well, when they first described it, they called it ashy, and that's a pretty good. Pretty good name for it, because it's kind of an ashy look to it. And these animals stem from Florida Key locality animals. And I know everyone. It's funny when I first brought one in, I unpacked the animal and I looked in there, and this thing just looked emaciated. In fact, if you ever see that feeding chart thing that you always see circulating around, and they show you that it looks like a cross section and it looks like a triangle, that's what cinders look like as an adult. And it doesn't matter how much food you plow into them, that's what they look like. But it's because they come out of the Florida Keys area down there, and I always equivalated. They're almost like a tree snake of some sort. They're long and they're slender. But who was that? Richard G. He had the first ones, and then Carol Huddleston picked some up. And they have like I said, they're really gray in color. But I don't know what Richard put them into first. I know Carol put them into Miami because the Miamis are so gray. So when it comes down to it, it's funny because when you breed something with a Cinder 2, it's almost an incomplete dominant gene. You can really see it in your heterozygous animals, usually with like A-males and stuff like that. It makes it way more bright and white, and it'll also gray out a lot of stuff. You can have like a normal looking corn from a Cinder, and it looks like a Miami. So much gray bleeds through.
Gotcha.
Any other morphs of interest? You think that's pretty cool, actually. I was looking them up while you were talking about them.
Right.
I've listened to quite a few episodes of Corn Stars, and they're always talking about Cinder. And I'm always in my car, so I can never actually look up what the hell they're talking about. So it's pretty
cool. Castani, which I'm gonna kind of start working with here pretty soon. I mean, getting a lot of stuff pumped into Castani. That was something that stemmed out of animals over in Germany in the collection over there. I mean, of course, the corns came from somewhere in the States, but made it over there, and the first ones popped out over there in Germany. And Castani's, I believe, German word for chestnut. So that kind of gives you an idea the color of them. Kind of got a brownish, bronzy color to them.
Yeah,
those are pretty cool. Like I said, this year I'm just kind of concentrating on making some Castani, but last year I started a whole bunch of projects with it, and I took a sun-kissed Cinder striped and went to a Mandarin, which is a Castani A-male, and I got some. I'm sure you guys had to have seen them, some crazy looking babies. I ended up with three eggs and 3 babies. And they're just, I don't know what's going on with them things.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. Well, I have to ask, when we come to morphs and localities, do you do much or anything with Oketees? Because I've danced around with corn snakes for quite a bit, and today when I opened up, I have Abbott line, and I have Shermans, I think. But every time I look at those Abbott Oketees, I just kind of like, God damn. like they're just so freaking cool. I don't know what else to say. But yeah, do you do anything with that?
I do have some Oketee. I actually got some Sherman line stuff. I got some from my buddy Joe Peck. He's the locale specific corn snake guy. They are het. He crossed them with Hendry County Anneries. And then I think they're A-male too from other Oketee lines. He gave me a bunch of those. I've got some animals in my collection that I can't say that they are Oketee, but they would give any Oketee out there a run for its money.
Yeah.
A lot of the people that know me always hear me talking about my Benny, Miss Benny line.
Okay.
I actually got out of breeding for about 10 years. Tell everyone I quit breeding snakes and we bred kids. So, but we always had snakes. Well, when I got back into breeding, my wife's like, yeah, we can do that. If you're going to pick up some adult animals. We're going to get this thing started quick. And I'm like, that's fine. And I remember I was on kingsnake.com and I saw this. It was just listed as an anery corn, but it had, I mean, just perfect banding, almost milk snake phase all the way down the sides. And it was from Dan Eby, who's a hog-nosed guy. He got it from in some trade or something. And it was like $35 for an adult male, is what it's supposed to be. Well, I got it in and named the thing. I name all my animals. It's just easier that way when I'm writing stuff down. I don't have to write down Henry, blah, 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 and all this. It's like Benny, Benny to this or whatnot. Anyways, I named this snake Benny because Benny and the Jets happened to be on the radio when I was putting the snake away. I was like, okay, Benny. That's how I name stuff anyways. Well, lo and behold, the time came to breed it, and it was like, not breeding. And of course, my wife always comes to the rescue. She's like, maybe it's a female. I'm like, well, it's supposed to be a male. And she's like, put it in with a male and see what happens. Of course, do that. Bam, locks up. So from that point forward, it was always Miss Benny. But that snake, starting with that, being missexed, it has just thrown some just weird stuff. I'm still trying to figure out everything that was in that animal. I think it came from Okatee, Miami, Spectre, Helicana type line. It is insane. And I'm still getting babies from those. I mean, she happened to pass away about, I think that was 2 years ago. She got cancer in her throat.
Oh.
But, yeah, I mean, she's still, and there's hets and different types of animals still coming from that animal. That was just, it's just like, where's this coming from? She's still throwing all these. She was an enigma when I got her, and she's still an enigma.
Good golly.
I'm going to share a quick little story, and I don't want to take any kind of credit on this. It's just interesting to me. So I want to say it was 2000, probably 5, 6, 7, somewhere in there. Back then, there were 2 lines of Okatee, Abbott's and Love. Those were the 2 lines you ever heard about. Now, I'm not saying there weren't other Okatees out there, but those were the lines that you ever, were told of. So in, again, 2004 through 6, somewhere in there, went to Daytona, and I met Howie Sherman through a mutual friend. Oh, hold on. We got a lot of background going on. There we go. I met Howie Sherman through a mutual friend at the time, and Howie gifted me some Okatees. They were his. The Sherman line, that was not a term back then. It wasn't until I grew those animals and bred them, and I could see a distinct difference in those, in the Abbotts and the Loves that I had. So when I began selling them, I labeled them Sherman line Okatee. And I remember for the first maybe 2 to 3 years, I'd have several people asking me, what's Sherman line? And I explained to them the background. I also explained because his were known to push 6 feet. The Sherman line Okatees were. They just
I've heard that.
Bigger. That's why you heard it. So what is amazing to me, and I'm not saying that it all stemmed from that, but to hear the 2 of you use the term Sherman line and knowing that was never stated before I sold those animals as Sherman line Okatees. It's amazing to now jump nearly 20 years later and hear how many people say they have Sherman line Okatees in their collection.
And I just bought one. I swear to God. Chris Montross, who we had on the show. He had a lone male, and he had a Sherman line, and then another Okatee, obviously, because he is like the god of locality, Colubrids, especially the southeastern rat snakes. But I thought, I've not heard of that one, but apparently the guy I do a podcast with might have made the damn name.
And what was funny is
and I just found out it can get to 6 feet, so I really hope that happens.
What's funny is I even remember back then, because it was like fauna classifieds and king snake was the big thing, but fauna classified, I can't remember which one it was on, but Howie made a comment, where he was like, Howie was kind of, I didn't know I had a line, and I reminded him who I was, where I got him. He's like, oh yeah. But because Howie didn't even call him Sherman line, they were just
You there?
Mm-mm. And now, wait, we're having technical difficulties out the wazoo. I can hear you, but I think it's going through your computer, man. Not your microphone.
Let me fix this.
All right. Well, while Clint does that, I'm going to keep talking to Eric. So,
yeah,
when it comes to being a corn keeper, because this is like what you do full time now, right? Or am I?
It is.
Yeah. I love asking this question to the people that I say had the courage to jump and basically be like, yep, this is going to be my livelihood. This is what I'm going to do. What advice do you have? Because there's got to be there has to be the expectation that you had going into it, and then there's the reality of doing it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So just talk to that. Is it what you thought it would be? Is there some little quirk of this that you're kind of like, what the hell? This is what keeps me up at night? Just speak to that for a little bit.
Well, I tell everyone right off the bat, it took me 30 years to get here.
There you go.
It wasn't an overnight sensation. And I tell people too, if you're thinking about going this route, grow into it. I see and I did it when I was younger too. When I first, after that gecko I had back in the 90s, then it was a king snake, and then it was a ball python, and then you go nuts.
Yep.
And next thing you know, you got 50 million animals in your house. And then the next thing you know, you breed them all, and then you're like, holy, you just get overwhelmed. Grow into it. Like I said, I took about a 10-year break, 10-year hiatus there. So when we got back into it, it wasn't full throttle right back into it. It was picked up some animals, raised those up, bred them, and got back into it slowly. And next thing you know, it was like, oh, okay, we can do this. I love what I do, still do. And it's like I tell everybody too, though, it's like, if all I had to do was deal with the animals, it would be perfect.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, when you sell animals, you have to deal with the people.
The animals are only 5% of it.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And when it comes down to it, that's the favorite part of it too. I mean, it's funny. I always tell everybody, it's people that make the reptile community good, and it's people that make the reptile community. I mean, it's just like life. I mean, it really is.
Mm-hmm.
But grow into it slowly.
With you doing this, full time, and with it being primarily corn snakes now, one of the things I experience, there are different species that are more popular in different venues.
Yeah.
So with corn snakes, I guess my question is, do you find that more of your corn snake sales come from shows or from online?
I tell you what, here lately, shows are killing it. My online sales have just jumped off a cliff.
Gotcha.
They're starting to pick up. It's like kind of, you were talking, about the business side. It's starting to pick up again now. Mm-hmm. And I've had a lot of people ask me about that too. And it's like, well, I tell everyone, look, we came out of those 2 COVID years where everyone had free money and nothing to do. And that wasn't normal. We have to level off from that. Everyone picked up snakes back then. They're not buying now. They're starting to pick back up now.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I figured that was going to be, kind of what you said, that the shows are where the corn snakes tend to sell more often. The reason I asked that is because, like, let's say Asian rat snake species, for example, I maybe have sold a handful through the shop. That's just not where they're popular. Online and at the shows, I sell tons. For me, now I've got more what I would call low-end corn snakes. I don't have, the biggest and shiniest morphs at the moment.
Right.
So my corn snakes don't really sell at shows, but they sell here at the shop. So I guess that's kind of, I always find that interesting on what does, because for me, it's even sometimes what show am I going to as far as what am I going to take, because I've learned this is what tends to be popular at this show. So I was just curious, kind of if you had a, this is where the corns do better for me. This is where the Russian rats do better for me. This is where, that kind of thing.
Right. I mean, no, with my, I don't know. That's another reason why I like the corn snakes too. It's like, I've got low end stuff and I like to have low end stuff. I was a kid once and poor and didn't have money. And it's like, I've sold normal corn snakes for $30, $35 and, no big. And I've got animals that are $400 or $500.
Mm-hmm.
Like having that variety in there.
Absolutely.
And then like the majority of the corn snake buyers, how do I put this? I don't know, less experienced. How about that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
It makes sense too, because it's a good first time animal.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, you have to deal with that. And those people, I see it all the time, and I try to answer the best I can without laughing. It's just funny though. 'Cause for me, I'm glad I've got to start in this whole thing outside. I saw my first snake outside.
Yeah.
I didn't see my first snake in a deli cup at a show.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I agree with that.
No, definitely.
So what advice do you have for either a new corn keeper or someone that's keeping several and ask, hey, what's the next direction I should go with my corn snakes? What kind of advice would you give someone?
Well, I like to tell everyone right off the bat, get yourself a book. They still make those.
Yes, they do.
And I still use them.
Yes. It's funny you bring that up, because that's actually something that I've said here at the store many times, because same thing. I carry several books, including Zach's, by the way, just so everybody knows. Got to support my guy.
I got one of those.
Yes, he did.
I can't have one. I can't have a single animal in there, but yeah, I got it.
Thanks for the support, Eric.
So, what I always tell people is it's, when you look online and you're researching, you're going to get mixed answers. You're going to get things that say, do this, do that, and they're going to be contradictory. I said the great thing is there will be newer information at times on the internet than, what you're going to find in the book, but the book is going to be kind of your meat and potatoes, start there.
Yeah,
and then,
exactly.
And then when you read something online, you can kind of see if it fits, if it makes sense, if it's, if it explains why it's going against, the common things. So I'm with you, man. I still refer back to, I've got not only a Zach's book right behind me, but I've got a gray band king snake book that's right back here. I still refer to at times on things. to me, it's important. It's the information's right there. And I don't know why. Maybe it's because of the gray in the beard, but it being printed on paper gives me just a little bit more of a feeling that I'm getting thorough knowledge than something typed on a screen. Because if you could have typed it with your thumbs, it may not be that profound, you know?
Yep, I agree wholeheartedly. And if we're talking about books, I always use the phrase oldie but a goodie. And the Love's Corn Snake Manual, I think it has there's the blue one, and then there's the update, which technically, because Kathy brought this up, I think, in our podcast when we recorded with her, it's not exactly the same book. But
right.
When I was writing my book, trying to get inspiration, I was reading all the complete guide series and all those. But right there with all them was that book. I mean, when the first snakes I bred were corn snakes. So corn snakes are always going to have a special place in my heart. And I literally had her book. This was in 2004. I did the thing where you build an incubator with a 10-gallon aquarium, an aquarium heater, and bricks. Like, they talk about that in there. Like, literally, I followed the recipe, no. So
I'm still using that for my ball pythons.
There you go. It works great. No, there was a moment when we were killing all those damn eggs last year, and I was like, we're going to break out some aquarium heaters, bricks, and 10 gallons, and maybe this is going to work now, and put this $1,500 piece of stuff in the dumpster. So, anyway.
Well, I tell everyone, get the book. That gives you a parameter, at least. I mean, after that, knock yourself out. Experiment. And, I try to tell people to experiment. I mean, within reason, you don't want to kill your animal, but, try stuff. But the book will always, at least you got a guide there. Boom. From that point forward, you can venture out.
You just saying that reminds me, the greatest mentor I ever had, it's completely un-reptile related. He was a mentor in my career and is a dear, dear friend to this day. And I could probably sit here and quote this man all night because he's written some just very, very thought-provoking things. Well, he was also not only my mentor, but he was my boss, which means he had to deal with me a lot. When I set my sights on something, I push through, I argue. I've been known as being combative. But a piece of advice he gave that I've repeated over and over to people that then later I would be leading. And it's master what's inside the box first, then think outside of it. And
Great.
I just thought that's so relevant. I mean, so it ties right into reading the book, and just make sure you're doing everything the way it's already been described. Then you can really measure and see what your results are whenever you're trying something different, and it's start with the basics, start with what's supposed to be there, then get creative. And I think that's very, very sage advice on anything in life, but snakes especially. So
I actually have Kathy Love's article from the Reptile magazine. I got that downloaded, and I'll comment with that a lot of times. Here, start there.
Yeah, there you go.
And I'll tell you, sorry, go ahead, Eric.
Oh, I was going to say, I had both of Kathy's books. The one I still have, I got from her and Bill at Tinley, probably 6 or 7 years ago now. I had the blue one, and I just gave that blue one away to a kid here to show last November.
So, you just kind of led right into what I was about to say, too. First off, yes, I have her book, and I've got it autographed because I got it from them at Tinley several years back, too.
Yeah, had to be the same one.
So, while we're talking about books, it shouldn't just be for you. If you're an adult listening to this, you may think you don't need the book, and that's fine. But you never know what one of these books will do to a child and for a child.
Absolutely.
In fact, I am I'm ashamed to say I'm real close to being 42 years old. And to this day, I still have a book that my 5th grade teacher gave me where she wrote in it, "To my snake lover, love Miss Ashby." She gave it to me in the 5th grade, and little did she ever think or know what I'd be doing with these things now. But I mean, I still have it, and I would sell every book I have before that one. That one will be the last one that ever leaves me, because it's, it was another guiding step, towards where we are now. So it's something that, I mean, it can change a life. It's that piece, and it gets them off a screen. Damn it! So
it gets them off a screen.
Get a book.
All right.
Which book was that, Clint?
It's just called Snakes, and it's at my house, in my home office. I'm in my shop office right now, or I'd grab it and I'd get exactly who the author and all that was. It's a thin book. It was one that's not packed with like species specific information. Yeah. It was more general.
Yeah.
But yeah, next episode I'll bring that with me so I can.
There we go.
Send that to everybody.
I can just remember, in the winter months, hanging out in the library, just grabbing every single snake book there was, just surrounding myself with that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
but heck yeah!
I think I have every Reptiles magazine from '95 till when it stopped running. I don't think I picked it back up when it kicked back in. You know, they went on that hiatus for a while. Yeah. So from 95 all the way to the hiatus.
No, we have all those here. I've hunted them all down. And there's definitely a difference in quality. Like the 90s, early 2000s were great. And then that hiatus kicked in. And then there's still some good articles they put out every now and then. But a lot of it, I still have a subscription just because I try to get as much content since I'm writing all the time. But yeah, so I've got a question, Eric, and we're nearing the end here. There's lots of, colubrids in your life. We've kind of talked about corns. I'm curious about this. Do you have any directions with the non-corns? Are there any species that you're kind of looking to add? Or are you happy with what you have and you're just going to move forward with that?
Well, right now, I like what I have. I've recently moved a few things off. I shipped my line pines off. I like those, but they're just taking up a little bit too much room. I'm starting to get to the point in my life too. It's like, what do I really want to work with?
Yep.
I mean, it kind of goes back. Probably should have asked when you were asking about getting into this. You can't work with it all. I can't. It just, as much as I would like to, I can't work with it all. And there's a lot of stuff that I don't want to work with. As far as any kind of new species coming in, I really like the house snakes. I've got a couple pairs of those. Would like to probably get some more of those, but not for a while.
All right.
I don't see much of. I mean, I say this. I don't see much of anything coming in this year.
Well, you haven't walked by my table at Tinley yet.
Well, that's what I had. I don't know if you've seen. I posted today. I had. There'll be cock's eye laticinctus eggs. So I picked up a cock's eye from you. I think last spring probably, to replace my male because I had 1.2 cock's eye and have had 8 clutches and only 2 kinked up one-eyed animals to show for it.
What are you incubating at? What temp?
Just my room temp, 75 to 79. I just shelved with everything else.
There were times that I'd experienced kinking in cock's eye as well. I never really got it in Pulcher or Laticinctus, but I would get it in cock's eye, and that was with multiple males. And I started incubating them at room temp, which for me is about 74, rather than putting them in an incubator at 79. And that seemed to significantly help with the kinking.
Well,
Just
it was this.
Heads up.
Right. I'm just saying, out of 8 clutches, that's all I've ever had to show for, because most of them came out slugs.
Then that sounds like more of a breeder, one of the breeders issue there.
So I'm like, all right, I've got 1.2. What's the chances that both the females are duds? So I got rid of the male, gave him to a friend for he does talks and stuff, and then I picked up that cockeye from you.
Gotcha.
So this year I was like, I don't like to do it, but I went ahead and put my Laticinctus with one of the cockeye, and I put the Polker with the other one, and I got 8 perfectly good eggs today out of the Laticinctus cockeye cross.
Gotcha. Well, tells you it's not your girl.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yep. Gotcha.
And final question, because I am curious to hear your perspective on this. State of herpetoculture today. You knew this was coming.
Yeah.
So do you?
Yeah.
Do you think we're, blue skies are ahead of us? It's the end of days, somewhere in between.
I think we just keep trudging forward. How about that?
Mm-hmm. That's fair.
I really don't try to put a whole lot of thought into it, because I can just get myself depressed. Because like I said, it took me 30 years to get here. I don't want to see it all disappear now.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see it disappear for anyone else either. I don't know. There's just a lot of, without getting into any of my story, I do live in Illinois, and our Illinois pet stores can't sell cats or dogs now.
Wow.
And I think the reptile community better, at least we got US ARC that'll help us out on a lot of that stuff and keeping us informed on these laws and stuff that are coming up. I don't know. We just keep going forward.
Fair enough.
Agreed.
All righty. Well, anybody wants to find you, they're interested in a corn snake of any persuasion or any of the other 24 species you work with. How do you recommend somebody finding you, seeing what you have available, all that kind of goodness?
I got everything's listed on Morph Market.
Okay.
Absolutely. Feel free to message me on, Facebook and Messenger. On Instagram too. Just ECW Reptiles.
All right.
And I will tell you from seeing him in person, the man has some beautiful corn snakes.
That he does.
Thank you.
Yeah. All righty. Well, with that being said, thank you, Eric. It's been a long time coming. I don't know. I saw you at Schaumburg and Tinley. I was like, you're definitely coming on the show. I know Clint said the same thing. Now it's finally happened. So there you go. We will certainly have you back on if you want the offer.
Oh, heck yeah.
All right. Sweet.
You can get me corralled.
Okay. Get you
Hey,
corralled.
thanks for having me, though.
Our pleasure.
No worries, man. Our pleasure.
Yep. Appreciate it.
Anybody that wants to find me, you know where to find me if you're a listener to prior episodes. But if not, I'm on Instagram, Dr. Crawdad, Facebook, Zach Loafman, and then you can email me, zloafman@westliberty.edu. I have my final clutch of false water cobras, sending a couple to Clint, and then I have a couple. If you're interested in one, fire a email out to me. The thing that's really the opportunity with this particular clutch is kind of cool. I think, because I did deep dives on lineage to the best of my ability, that these are pretty unique genetically, and they are very dark. So those that like the high black, as I call them, these are going to be stunners in that regard. So listener discount, hit me up. But other than that, Clint, where can people find you?
You can find me on Facebook at Clint Bartley or at Metazotics. Find us on Instagram, Metazotics LLC. Check us out at metazotics.com. Feel free to email at metazotics@gmail.com.
All righty. So whatever time of day, night, evening, morning it is when you're listening to this, hope you have a great one. Goodbye.